Amen. As we approach this coming Tuesday, and the entire world is on pause, waiting to see what God is about to do. And as you have talked and as you have been in conversation all week, and you have rested, some of you have gotten nervous and anxious about this coming Tuesday. As you waited in line, I want to remind you that we are still living in troubled times. And this morning, God has called me to begin a conversation with you that the choice is up to you. The choice is up to you. We saw this week again, last week going on to this week in our own city of Philadelphia, a city that a young man with mental illness was shot and killed. Another troubled man who needed help was shot and killed. He had mental and physical challenges. He was killed. We are living in troubled times. You have watched once again that nearly 100,000 people had to evacuate from their homes in California. Beautiful homes, large home mansions, people running, physically running to get away from the raging fire. We have watched on the East Coast as Zeta begins its journey. Another storm is heading our way. We are living in troubled times. We've had so many storms that they have to move from the English alphabet now in the Greek alphabet, Zeta. So many trouble on every coast. We have watched yesterday the largest number of infection of COVID ever in the history of this disease in our land. We have watched indeed as a gifted but talented woman, but yet the process of Amy Barrett being rushed through confirmation when Obama was denied his own candidate because no one believed in the process. We watched. But also we have watched with a smile on our faces that nearly 90 million people have got a hold of early voting and have began to say maybe there's a time, something bigger than what we can understand is going on. But our hearts have been broken even this morning as we have heard that 230,000. It's hard to fathom that number. 230 people have died of COVID. We are living in troubled times. We watch in the debate as the issue was raised about the 545 children separated from their mothers and fathers. And they were asked, what are we going to do about them? And you heard our leader says, they are living in good cages. We are living in troubled times. People we know, people we work with have lost their jobs. You have heard over and over again that people cannot pay their rent, they cannot pay their mortgages, they have lost their homes. You have heard over and over again their trouble is everywhere. And here we are on the verge, on the brink, and people are on tiptoe expectancy, waiting to see what's going to happen on November the 3rd. Oh, we have watched, we have listened. And that's exactly what happened here in the book of Deuteronomy. The word itself, Deuteronomy, means words. That God was about to speak some words to the people of Israel. And here they were standing and watching as Moses now was approaching. He approached and Moses says, God have always spoken. I don't matter how despairing, disparaging, or depressing it is, God always speaks. Always speaks. As you look through the book, it said, God is about to speak. God says, God speaks. God always speaks. Sometimes he speaks through disturbances and calamities, but God always speaks. And Moses said, you need to know that about our future, we all will not live the way we ought to live, but God will always speak. You need to know that God has already want to arrange and fix our hearts towards him. God always speaks. You need to know that the gospel message will always be able to speak to the hearts of people. And here comes Moses. Moses now standing out in front of the people of Israel, and he's at the plain of Moab, overlooking the promised land. And here is Moses about to pronounce his last words to the people. What will Moses say? Moses knew already that he would not go into the promised land. That would be Joshua's responsibility. And everybody was leaning over, waiting to hear what Moses would say to them, to them as they stood there in tiptoe expectancy, standing to hear his last words. What would Moses say? Last words before the promised land is entered in by the Jewish people? Moses was bold, and Moses stood up and said, there are two directions in life. There are two directions. You can choose life or you can choose death. And the choice you make will determine your destiny. Wow. The choice is yours. Choose life or death, and your decision will determine your destiny. Here he was on the plain of Moab, looking over into the promised land. And Moses stand and said, people, there's three things I want to say to you before I give my departure. And Moses stood there. And Moses, number one, recall all that God had done for them during their journey from Egypt into the wilderness, now standing on the verge of the promised land. And Moses began to chronicle everything how God has kept them, provided for them, quail and water in the desert. He's been a companion, give them light and food, whatever they needed. He began to chronicle them. He reminded them, number one, that God has been with you in the past. Then Moses moved on to the second thing. Moses sat there and he recited the covenant. He said, God has made a covenant with your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God has promised you that he would deliver you. He didn't say it wouldn't be rough. You didn't have to cry. You didn't have to go through some turbulent time. But God promised that he would be with you. And here you are. Didn't he carry you through? Yes, he did. For 9 months, he carried us through. Here we are. He recited the law. And then Moses reminded them that God will keep his covenant. Whenever God makes a promise, God will keep his promise to his people. And Moses stood there and told them that God is about to do something great. God is about to prosper them. God is about to give them, multiply them. God is about to give them the desire of God's heart. But Moses said, but, I know some of you are saying but the choice is up to you. The choice is yours. Moses suggests to them that they can choose life or death, good or evil. There are two roads in front of you. It depends on the road you take. Scott Peck in his book talked about the road less traveled. But what road would you take? The choice is up to you. God wants us to do something great in your life, he told them. God wants to speak to you. God wants to give you possibilities. God wants to take you down the path of construction, not destruction. But it depends on what we do this Tuesday. Blessing or curse, the choice is us. Will we choose this Tuesday mercy over misery? Will we choose joy over stress? Will we choose peace over worry? The choice is ours. God has raised the standard. And this Tuesday, we have a choice. And depends on the decision we make to see what God is going to do. God can do the unimaginable. God can do the unchangeable. God can still do the impossible. And so we have a choice. He told the people of Israel. And as I close, I want to tell what the three choices are. Moses says, God have taken you to the edge of the promised land to show you what your vision can look like. That every one of us has the possibility of creating a vision And the vision that we create will determine our future. Right now, we're experiencing the storm, but you can see the storm is passing over. Yeah, God is able to stand up and remind us that we are struggling right now, but struggle don't last always. That we are sick now, but sickness doesn't last always. Your vision determines how you see what others can't see. And because we are people of faith, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. We as Christians see what other people can't see. Paul said we walk by faith and not by sight. Because our reality is greater than what we see. Faith allows us to see what the eyes can't see, what the ears can't hear, because God functions in the spiritual. And God can do what the ears and the eyes can't see. Visions, the vision God has given to you and I is one that is extraordinary. That's what Martin King did when Martin King was in Memphis, and Martin King looked over into the reality of racism and all that was taking place in America. And Martin King said, I have a dream that one day these black girls, and look what God has done in 2020 in raising up Kamala Harris. Who would have known? God would have done that in 2020. You say, I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get there together. He says, we have to be able to see on Tuesday that our children can get a better education than they're having now, that we can spend more money on education than we do on prisons. We have to be able to see that our seniors will have adequate housing. We have to be able to see that somehow our seniors don't have to choose between medicine and food. That somehow we're able to see that poverty can be extinguished and that black life does matter. We have got to be able to, he said, Moses said, I'm giving you a vision as you look over the promised land to see the possibilities of what God can do. Refuse to be ordinary and watch God do the extraordinary. A vision, he said, I'm giving you the possibility of what you can see when you allow your faith to take hold. And so Moses said, not only am I giving you a vision, but I want you to vote with your feet. Choose. You have got to make a choice. You have got to vote. You have got to vote this Tuesday. And I'm not going to argue with anybody. This year I've made up my mind. I'm not going to argue with anybody about why they need to vote or why they don't need to vote. If you don't have a reason this year to vote and understand the power of the vote, if you don't understand that there is power, we saw what happened in 2016 when people stayed home watching the polls, and we are reaping some of the repercussion for staying home. We saw what happened. If you're an African, if you're a Caribbean person, if you're an African American, if you're a woman, you know what this country went through in order for us to vote. And when we don't vote, we are damaging the future of our children. When we don't vote, we are disrespecting the sacrifices that the women have made over the years. When we don't vote, we are disrespecting what Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood for. When we don't vote, then Medgar Evers been shot in his driveway is empty. When we don't vote, the scars in the head of John Lewis was a waste of time. When we don't vote, Judge Chisholm from Brooklyn died in vain. And Bloody Sunday in 1965 was an empty exercise. When we don't vote, we are voting because people died to give us the privilege to vote. So you may have to stand in line a little bit. You may have to wait in the rain a little bit. but somebody died. You have got to be able to say, nobody going to turn me around. I'm going to stand here. Nobody going to turn me around. I'm going to keep on standing. Keep on standing. Keep on standing. Let nobody turn you around. When we vote, when we don't vote, we are jeopardizing our children's education. We are jeopardizing our participating in the whole criminal justice system. Poverty will reign when we don't vote. We have got to vote, and this vote is important because this vote will determine the next 40 years in this country. We have got to vote. So Moses says, people of Israel, you have got to vote. Choose life or choose death. But your vote will determine your destiny. Not only do we have a vision of what's going to happen in the promised land, not only do we have to vote, but Moses said you have got to use your voice. Say something. Grab your neighbor, grab your co-worker, grab somebody and tell them they have got to vote, because it does make a difference by using your voice. When your voice is used in speaking up at the precinct or the community board, it does make a difference that you express how you feel and say what you feel. And don't tell me one person doesn't make a difference. You don't know history. You don't have read history. One person does make a difference. Can I tell you that one mosquito, when you try to sleep at night, one tiny mosquito buzzing around your room all night will keep you awake? Don't tell me we can't make a difference. One person will make a difference. And Moses said, come here, Moses. Didn't you, one person, tell Pharaoh, let my people go? Joshua, didn't you tell the people to be courageous? Stephen, didn't you say, go ahead and stone me? I will not deny the power of God. Paul, didn't you tell the people, I've run my race and kept my faith? Don't tell me one person can't make a difference. Dorcas, didn't you tell the people, all I want to do is serve? Esther, didn't you say, if I perish, I perish, but I'm going to see the king? One person. And if you're a sport fan, LeBron James has made a difference. Every team he has gone to. Don't tell me you are the people who don't know and recognize the greatest player in the world. Every team he has gone to, he has made a difference. And he is making a difference in 120 students every year who go to college, that they can go to college free because of one man. Don't tell me one man can't make a difference. So Jesus says, don't forget that I, Jesus, I came as a lamb to the slaughter, and I'm voting for life for anyone who will seek me first and my kingdom. Then I promise you that their lives will change. If my sheep know my voice and call upon me, I will answer. One person does make a difference. Jesus voted for you. Voted for you. He voiced his opinion for you. For God so loved that he gave you a royal priesthood, a holy nation. He gave an answer that your greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. Have a vision. See what others cannot see. Cast your vote, but choose the right direction. Use your voice. Speak up wherever there is injustice. And all I know, this coming Tuesday, we must decide to take the high road of the country or to take the low road and become the laughing stock of the world. What will you do? Choose life. Choose mercy. Choose joy. Choose people. Wake up Wednesday morning early if you can't sleep Tuesday night. And finally say, I can't tell you who to vote for. Just make sure you vote for the right person. And when you do that Wednesday morning, you're going to wake up and say, look what God has done. Look what God has